So variables and data types. So what is variables? Anyone? Unmute and you can answer the questions. Like it's not necessary that like you need to write in only chat. So what are variables?
It's nothing but where you can store the data.
Okay. Variable is to store any data and can be utilized in the later stage wherever it is required, right? So what variable will do is like it will hold some data and it can be utilized, that data can be utilized in later stages wherever we require that data to be utilized, and that we call it as a variable. And what type of data can a variable hold? What type of data a variable can hold the data hold?
Int, float,
Any
double,
type,
char,
yeah,
any type, yeah.
any type of data can be stored in a variable. An example: string, integer, float, double, array, list,
List, yeah.
data table,
Data table.
character, dictionary. So any type of data we can store. So based on there are custom data types, but in UiPath uh, we will have the custom data types which are defined by the UiPath. Like we will see those variables when we are dealing with the UiPath. So there are a couple of custom data types which can be created in UiPath. See, there is no limitation for UiPath. Whatever you can perform the operations in C#.NET, those can be done using the UiPath based on the type of the data variable is holding. That type we call as data types. Means like whatever the types we have, right? The type of the data we are assigning to the variables. That type we call it as a data types or variable data types. So we can say type of. Let us consolidate like to the data type only, and how the variable will be utilized or created or defined when we come to any programming language, right? Variable will be identified based on three properties: name, type, scope. So are you clear about these three? So when I say name of variable should always unique. Variable always unique, right? And name of variable should not be keywords. So it will be in the similar way of how the other programming languages will work, right? Name of variable should start with alpha numeric. Name of variable should not have spaces. And like when you are creating the variable itself, like it will give you an error if you are creating in a different way. So we just need to take care that like it should be always unique, and even if you are giving a duplicate name, it will not allow you to create the variables. But in case if you are going with a duplicate name in a different scopes, then it will not throw an error, and it will give you a warning in case under the same scope the two variables are available. So we just need to make sure that we are not creating any variable name with a duplicate name. It's a good practice that you should always have a unique name, and also as per the best practice, it should have a meaningful name for which this variable is created. Which means like instead of creating it as like var or some normal words, we should create the name, like we should give the name of a variable for which we are going to use this variable, and like what type of data, or like it can be like in which scenario we are creating this um, variable. So we need to take care of all those things when we are creating, and as we go and we do the development, right, so we will get to know for what like how we are going to write these variable names. And the type is we already discussed, like data type of the data that a variable is holding. And scope. So can anyone tell me what do we mean by scope?
Output.
No.
Scope like visibility. I mean, what level
Yes.
of access the variable has.
Yes. So scope is nothing but in which scope the variable is visible, which means like we have a main function, sub1 function, sub2 function. So we have three functions. One is main function, and inside that we have a sub1 function and sub2 function. Okay. And in case if you are creating a variable for sub1, and if I have a var, so we have a variable in the main function, and we have a variable in the sub1 function, and we have a variable in the sub2 function. So the scope of this variable 1 is only the sub1. and this variable can be utilized or it can be available only under this function. It cannot be accessed by sub2 function, but it can be accessed by the main function, because this scope is under the scope of main function, which means this variable will be available. Sorry, I was like going in a wrong direction. This variable will be available only in the sub1 function, and it cannot be accessed in the sub2, and also it cannot be accessed in the main function, because it is available only under this function. So this scope is limited to only sub1. In the similar way, the var2 will be for the sub2 only, and it cannot be accessed by the sub1 or a main. And when we have a variable in the main function, it can be accessed in main function and also sub1 and sub2 as well, because it is having the global scope at the highest level scope, and it can be accessed inside of this function, and these functions are also inside our main function. Which means, like, let us suppose why we did you got the clarity of the scope of a variable? Or if you are having any questions, I'll repeat the things again. Come on, guys.
So let's say if we define some variable in the main function, right, that we can access in both sub1 and sub2, right? But let's say if
Yes.
we define function, if we define some variable in the sub1, right, that we can't access in the main and the sub2, right? So it
Yes.
means that we are limited that variable to the only sub1 function. So
Yes.
is it any other way that we can access that variable in the main as well, that we define in the sub1?
So you need to change the scope to main function, or else you need to utilize the concept of arguments to return the value from sub1, and that can be utilized in main. Here I'm talking about the functions, because it's a general way of like talking about the functions. But when we come to UiPath, right, it will be kind of like sequence level as well. The scopes will be at the sequence level as well. We will see that in UiPath as well.
In other programming language like Java, basically we have a different keyword, like we have a public, we have a private, we have a protected. So in the UiPath also, I think we can have, right, this type of keyword that we can use that keyword in
No,
the other function.
you don't have such a public and all these keywords here. Here what you will be having is, like, you can just change the scope, or else you need to have a global variables. UiPath, you don't have such keywords. Okay.
Yeah, path, yeah.
Yeah. So 1 second, I just need to come back. Yeah, why we are limiting a variable one scope to a sub1 is this variable, whatever we are trying to use, right, we required only inside of this function, and it is not required for us to this variable is not no more required in the other functions or a main, whatever it might be. So in that scenarios, we will be initializing the variable inside this function, and we are disposing the variable in the same function. So it will be kind of like managing your memory utilization and all, because the variable will consume some of the memory. So that is the reason for which, and we doesn't require this variable outside of this function, then we will initialize the variable and we will dispose the variable there itself. Okay. And now, so what are the different type of variables you guys know aware of? You're aware of string, which is text, integer is of number, boolean, or false, right? Date time is date and time. So what else, guys?
Array, dictionary, and list. Yeah.
Dictionary.
No, I'm like, see, these are the simple data types, and these are the complex data types, right?
Correct.
So we are like, still I'm just waiting. Like, we can just like have only these four as a, like, for now time being, simple data types, and these are the complex data types. And when you are dealing with these data types, right, it will be easy. It's not that much complex. And see, the variables, whatever I'm showing, right, these are the mostly used data types in UiPath. And we can have a data table, tabular data, and so we have more like mail message object or something object, we can say. Yeah, double, float, decimal, like it will come under the numbers only, right? Like, though it is like you'll be having decimal points and all, but it is kind of numbers, right? So we are just trying, like, even we can use them as well based on our requirement. Like, in case if you are dealing with currency values, in that case you may require the double or decimals. So we will be utilizing them. Yeah. So, to write, see, if you want to write, we have a lot. So I'm just trying to give the most commonly used. So the object. The object is holds any type of data. It can hold the text, or it can hold the number, it can hold the decimal, or it can have like the combinations. Like, we can have any type of data, and we can convert that to our required data as well. So there will be some scenarios that, like, if we doesn't know what type of data you are getting, and in that cases we may take the object. There will be some scenarios. So we'll get to know where we are going to use the object and how we can avoid the object variable as well, type as well. In some scenarios, we can avoid this. So the specifically why we are talking about the object is, we can see here all these, we can say it as like the simple data types, right? Simple variables. But the data table is kind of an object because it's a tabular data and it's a collection of rows and columns, right? And if you talk about like emails which you will be receiving, that will be in the mail message, and that we will not call it as variables, we call them as an objects, right? So that's the, like, object will be like it can hold any type of data. It's not specific to some type of data. And here when we come to the complex, right? So why I'm specifying these three is, most probably in almost all the interviews, right, from the variables, people will ask the difference between these three only in majority of the scenarios, and we will be using these in majority of the cases as well. So array is collection of data of same type of data, right? So we can have the collection of all the string variables, or we can have all the collection of integers, or we can have the collection of data tables. So that is actually we call it as array. And what is list?
Dynamic array.
Yeah, correct. Dynamic array, we can say. And in terms of definition, it will be same, right? And dictionary?
in the form of key and value.
Yes. Key and value. So which means one second, guys. Just give me a moment. And value pair, right? Which means can it be of different data types? Of
Yeah.
one data type, value of
Another data type.
same or other data type. So key can be of one data type and the value can be of other data type, or it can be of same data type. But your collection of all the keys will be of same data type and collection of values will be of same data type. Correct? And what actually the difference between the array and list? See, we will not compare three at a time. We can compare what is the difference between array and list and what is the difference between dictionary and list. In case if someone asks you question, what is the difference between array, list and dictionary? So generally our answer should go in such a way that we will talk the difference between list and array, and then we'll talk the difference between list and dictionary. So let us see.
Sorry, can you explain once again array and list?
No, so till now I didn't even explain the difference. But what I'm saying is,
No, not
in
difference.
case-
Can you explain what is array?
see, array is collection of your values of same data type. It can be example way we can say
Integer, or you mean to say?
yeah, integer or a string or whatever it might be, but it should be of same type.
Okay. But
You can say
maybe let me ask you, if I have a data which has a characters as well as the integer.
You cannot combine both of them into a single array.
Okay.
It is not possible.
Okay. What about list?
Not only
List is
array,
also same.
even for the list as well.
Okay.
And
Both are
even
same.
for the dictionary as well.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So in such a scenarios, right, how you can achieve is you can convert your data types to the object and you can create your array of object or list
Yeah.
of an object. Array of object is not possible because you have a different types, right? It cannot be collaborated. Like you need to create that in a dynamic way in that scenario, right? You will not get all the values at a time. So in that case, you should go with the list because you need to convert them to the object and you need to add that to the collection, right? So if someone asks you a question, the difference between array, list and dictionary, then our answer should go array versus list, list versus dictionary. Reason why I'm saying like it should be in this way is there will be some similarities between these. Array and the list is one common point is collection of same data type values, right? And array is immutable. Can we say that it is immutable? No, no, no. Array is of fixed size. List can be, list size can be modified, which means cannot add or remove items. We call it as items, right? Like when we have a collection from an array, can add or remove items from list. So you can add or remove items from the list, whereas we cannot add or remove items from an array. Third point is we can modify the data in both array and list. So we cannot remove the items, but we can modify the data of item. So it will be same in case of modification of the data. Okay. And values can be accessed with index in both array and list. So the only difference what we can see is the size of the data. So we need to give this point, and we can say the rest of the properties will be same for array and list, except this. Got it? Any questions here? Array versus list?
Yeah. One small doubt I have it. Do we have any limitation on the size part?
See, I'm not pretty sure about it, but it will be like in case if you have any limitation in the C#, right? The similar way you might be having, but till now, in my experience, I never crossed on the limitation of the items which we need to hold. Like like I worked with like almost like more than hundreds of data in the dictionary.
Okay. Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to the list versus dictionary, right? List is collection of items with same data type, whereas the dictionary is key and value pairs key of. So we can just put it here itself, like the definition is not required, key and value pairs. And we can add or remove items from both list and dictionary. We can modify the data of an item in both list and dictionary. So here is the actual difference between these three. List or array items can be accessed with the help of index. Values of dictionary will be accessed with the help of keys. So this is the difference. And now the question comes, see, even the list and dictionary is also of the dynamically we can do all the operations. Then why we are going with a dictionary? Why not with a list, right? There will be such a questions will come. So list, we are accessing the values with index, and let us suppose if we want to use a specific item. See, if all the items can be utilized in the same way, then you can access it with index. But in case if you want to access a specific value only, like I'll give you an example. I'm having a list of student names. So let us suppose I have this list and I have one more list of age group. Okay, so I'm just having in this way. Don't worry guys if I'm giving you wrong ages, but I'm just randomly I'm picking. So if you want to utilize the, like if you want, the person name, and if you want to get the age of it, so here, and you are dynamically adding the values here, right? It's not at the fixed. And also, even if you are going with the fixed also, you need to get the index of this person if you want to have a value of this, and you need to come here. But in terms of dictionary, right, this will be your key and this will be your value, which means these values based on the index will be tagged. Even if something is got changed, like if something is like in this way, and if you are saying that like for the index 1 here it is index 2, it can happen in that way because it will not be in the order, it will be tagged to the key. So whenever you are calling with the key, that value will be returned. But in case if you are going with indexes, right, it will be directly indexing mapping. It's not like there is no link between these two, and you may need to build some additional to get the link between these two. So that is the advantage of having a dictionary. Dictionary. So what we need to take care when we are creating a dictionary, key is always unique. You cannot create a duplicate keys. Okay, and also in case by mistake if you use the duplicate key, existing value will be overwritten. So you'll be losing your old value and the new value will be overwritten here. So are we clear about these different types till now? Queries till this place? So when we are like till now we are like discussed about the variables and its data types, and the importance of the complex data types and difference between them. And the most probably asked interview question will be this: array versus list versus dictionary. So we should be clear about this.
Can you
And
give me an example for dictionary?
yeah, here I'm saying, right, like here itself I told, like, right, see here it is in the order, right? We'll be accessing it with index, and you have another list which is with the ages. Here how the dictionary will look like is, so here is my dictionary, which means like it will be directly associated with the keys. And if you want to retrieve the data with the help of keys, this value will be written. If you see here, right, the indexes are different, and you will be getting a wrong mapping. But here it will be tagged with the keys, and we need to call with the keys, and we will be getting those values. If you don't have any linked data or any dependency of any value, and you can just directly call it with the indexes, in that case we will be using the list. In case if you have a dependency of linked data, like if it is linked with some name or some key, see the value which is like linked with the key, we will be utilizing the dictionary. And the values which doesn't have any link to any or dependency on anything, that will go with the list. So we just need to choose which is required for us. Yeah, phone book. Correct. Good example, actually. Thanks. Okay. So are we clear so far about the variables and the data types? You guys are clear, then we can jump into the UiPath to see how we can utilize them and how we can like mainly in UiPath, right? The most probably I need to show you more in terms of scope, because whatever we had an explanation here, scope is not relevant to UiPath. And if everyone is clear, and you can go to the UiPath. It's almost like 40 minutes, right? Let us have a 5 minutes break, and we'll be on the call only. So let us have a 5 minutes break, and then we'll meanwhile you can just recall the things if you want to have, and you can come up with the questions as well. And in the next 5 minutes we will start, and for now I'm just going on mute. Yes, of course. Like after 5 minutes we are going to UiPath, and we are going to see each and every the scope and data types, how we are going to do, and the global variables, and also how we can create our dictionaries or a list, or how we can manipulate. So whatever we discussed, that we are going to do in the UiPath as well. That's what I'm saying. Like if you have any questions, so we can see it here, like we can discuss it here, or else like what I'm saying is like we'll have a 5 minutes break, and we'll start from 10:50 again. I'll just go on mute. Okay, let us sync back. We'll be in the call only, and we'll be on the mute, and we'll start in the next 5 minutes for the UiPath. We are clear about all these concepts, right, in theoretical way. And now we are going to the UiPath Studio. So before we go for the variables, right, I just want to give a quick intro of like 3 particular activities. So these 3 activities generally we will use in to see the variables and all, values and all. Like the write lines, if we are writing something, right? Message box. So generally we will just utilize these. See, for write line and message box, like to see what actually the values are holding and the tracing purpose and where we executed and all. And the log messages is something that like it will write all the logs or execution traces in the orchestrator logs, and that we will see the importance of each log message and all these things in the debugging class. And also when we are executing our process, we will see how the log messages are getting reflected in the orchestrator also after our project implementation. And for now, in regular development activity, how we are going to utilize these is, we will see. Let me run this file. If we are running this file, message box, it will display the values, and till the time we click on OK, it will not go further. And the write line and the log messages will write in the output panel. And if you see, right, the colors are a bit different, which means here, if we are running it from studio, the write line messages will be reflected, and the log messages will reflect even if you are running in the production or from the robot. And here we are running from the studio, so the write lines will be visible. And we need to make sure that we should not have any write line when we are publishing our project. When we are moving the project or process from development to the production, right? So we should remove all the write lines. We should not have any write line in place because it is useless in terms of production. Here it will be for traceability to see the things in the output panel. We can write this, use this write line. And I'm just removing all this. And what are the different ways we have? Or first, let us see from where we can create the variables. There are 2 ways in this panel. One is like we can create it from the variables panel, okay, and we can create it from the data manager. Yeah. In case if you want to create any, let me just minimize all these things. In case if you want to create any variables, global variables, that can be created from here. So when we are trying to create a variable, right, here the scope, if you see, right, we have a global and main. There are 2 things, which means like if we select main, it will be available only in this workflow. If we select global, it can be available in other workflows as well. When we are going to create a new workflows, even that will be available. And for now, we are not going to deal with the global variables, but just make a note that the global variables will be available to use across complete, like in your process, in your complete process. But the main is that like it will be available only inside of your main. So in this way, you can create the variables. I'm just deleting this. And there we saw, right, like main and the global. Let us suppose if you want to create a variable here. Here, if you see the scope, right, you'll see only the main because you have only main. You don't have the global option here. So the global variables can be created only from the data manager. And see, if we create some variable here, and that will get reflected here. You can see the scope here, main. And if you want to change it to the global, you can change it from here. See the symbol C here. You can see the globe symbol here, right? Let me change it. You cannot change the scope again. Once you create the global variable, you cannot change the scope. Let me delete it from here. You have the variable again here from here. So variables can be created either from the variables panel or from the data manager. Okay. And first, let us do one thing. Let us create a variable. Sample variable from variable panel. It should not be that much lengthy. I'm just writing in that way. And here we have the variable type. We can select what type of variable we want to create. And if you see, right, we have very limited data types here. But if you click on the browse types, you can find a lot. And if you want to create some date time, right, we just need to search and it will give you. And from here, we need to select. So we have a lot, right? But we need to go with the system date type. Here it is. We can select it. We can just select it and click on OK. So this is how we can create any data type variables here in this. Let me cancel this. Let us keep it string for now. And what is this default? The default is, by default, when we create any variables, right, it will not hold any data. We need to assign it. So let us run this flow. If you see the output panel, right, there is nothing visible here. So we need to assign the values to a variable. And when we are creating a variable, we can have a default value. And let us run this flow now. So default value. So whatever we are giving as a default value, that value will be assigned to this variable till the time a new value is assigned to it. To assign a value to the variable, we will be using assign activity. Assigned value. If we run this workflow, right, the new value is got assigned to it. In case if you create one more, if you want to reassign any other value to the variable, reassigned value, let us execute it. Output panel. So reassign value. So which means like we can overwrite or reassign any value to the existing variables. Clear? And what is the different way of creating a variable? So we can create from the variables and we can create it from the data manager as well. And what are the different other way we have? For now, I'm just taking some activity. Let us not focus on that activity for now. So what I will do is I'll just take this for now. Like don't think of this activity, and it is having an output. Here we have a output which this activity is going to return you. And let us assume that you doesn't even know what type of data type is required for this variable, right? You'll be getting an output from this activity and you're not aware of what type of data type variable is required for this, right? So in this scenarios, what we will do is generally we'll just hit Control K, get text output. and hit on enter. If you hit Control K, that will is the shortcut, and it will allow you to create a variable. And if you come to the variable panel, get text output, and it is a string type because it is going to return you the string. And let me do one thing. I'll take the Outlook mail message activity because it is very simple, right? You know that you can create it. Even if you know for this get Outlook mail message, it is a complex data type. And again, you need to go to the browse and all these things. And it is going to be a time consuming thing for you, right? So you can just come here in the output panel, you can just hit Control K, Outlook mail messages. See here, it is a list of mail messages. If you come here, right, it is system.collections.generic.list, and inside that it is system.net.mail.mail message. So this is a complex data type which is of list of mail messages. We can simply call it as list of mail messages, but we need to go in this length. First you need to select the list, and then inside of the list you need to select the mail message. And in case if you want to create that, how we are going to create is, you need to create the variable in the panel, and then you need to go to the browse types, system.collections. generic.list. You need to select the list, and here again you need to browse for the new data type, system.net.mail.mail message. You need to select it, and you need to click on OK, and then OK. Then now you got this list message. So instead of like going all around this, we can simply create your variable from this output by hitting the Control K. So these are the 3 different ways where we can create our variables. So is that clear so far? More queries here, like for the creation of the variables? So now let us create a variable. Main variable, sequence 1 variable, sequence 2 variable, right? So we created 3 variables, and for now everything scope is main because we selected this main sequence and then we created it. Okay, so let me delete these 2. Just I selected, and I can hit on the delete key from the keyboard, or else I can right click and delete. And I select this sequence 1, and I'll create sequence 1 variable. If you see here, right, the scope is sequence 1, and I'll select sequence 2, and the sequence 1 variable which we created inside our sequence 1 is got disappeared because it is having the scope of only sequence 1. And if you select sequence 1, then only you can see that variable. And I can say sequence 2 variable, which is available in the sequence 2 scope, right? And if you see here, right, in both the sequences, we could able to see the main variable. And if we come here, the main variable is visible because the main variable is inside our main sequence, which is of parent scope, the topmost scope. So we can see that. And in the sequence 1, we have sequence 1 variable. In sequence 2, we have sequence 2 variable. And outside of those scopes, we cannot see the values, right? And how to change the scope? We can change the scope from the sequence 2 to, we can change it to the main, and from the main to sequence 2. So in order to change the scope of these variables, you need to be there in that sequence. You need to select that sequence, and you can swap the scopes as well, like from the main to here. If I come here, right, I have the sequence 2 variable and I don't have the main. And let us put both of them in the main sequence. And let us do one thing. Let me write a log message here. So write line here. I can use the main variable here, right? Because it is having the scope of main and it can be accessed in the sequence 1 and also sequence 2 and also main, right? And let me go back here and I'm changing the scope of main to sequence 2. And here I'm getting a validation error because this cannot be accessed inside this. It can be accessed only in the sequence 2. So when we are changing the scopes also, right, we need to be very careful in case if we utilize the variables in some of our processes and later if we are trying to change our scope, so that is going to create a problem for us. So we need to be very careful when we are dealing with the variable scopes. And is it clear regarding the variable scopes? If I delete this, right, we'll lose the variables as well. We'll have only this variable with the scope, whatever we have. So is it clear or having any the scope of the variables? Okay, now let us go with the other variable types, right? We have assign, array variable, list variable, dictionary variable. So let us take these three variables now. See, if you remember, right, when I am dealing with the string, let me do one more thing, string variable. So I don't have any default values here, and here it should be array, right? I'll take array of string, or let us take array of integer. I need to take the list, right? System dot collections dot generic dot list of integer, and here we need to go with the dictionary. Let us see where we have the dictionary. Here it is. We have dictionary key and value base. We can select the key of string and the value of integer. So we created all the four variables now. What I will do is I'll simply use string variable here in the right line and let me run the flow. There is nothing here because that variable is not holding any data, right? So we didn't got any error. Let us try to access the value of an array variable. So array variable values we generally access with help of index, right? So I'll go with the 0 index. Okay. Dot to string, because it's an integer. I think I skipped the topic of data type conversion that we will continue tomorrow. Just remind me, guys, if I forgot the conversion from one variable to the other. Once we are clear with these things, then we'll go with the type conversion. Just remind me in tomorrow's session as soon as we are starting, right? So we'll cover the type conversion and then we will continue with our curriculum. Okay. And now let me run this. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. In many of the scenarios when we are working, this is the frequent error we are going to get when we are dealing with the variables, because
listening to you, it's very stubborn, talk back.
someone is talking. Shri, if you have any questions, you can ask, or else just please go on mute. Okay. So because this, we don't have any value assigned to it, right? And it was not initialized. There are two ways. Either the value needs to be initialized, because here you are trying to access it with index and there is no value at that place. So we will be getting this error. Sorry. It was not initialized or no value is assigned to it. So we are getting this error. And in case we have, let us see another error. So I given a value to the 0 index, right? If you see, we have assigned a value to the 0 index, and let us run this file. It was printed. And let me go to the next index, because see, the indexes we will be counting from 0 and the numbers are from 1, but see, first item, the index will be 0 in any of the collections. So I'll go with 1. Let us run this file. Now we will get outside the boundaries of an array. Index was outside the bounds of an array, because we have only one item and we are trying to access the second item. So in that case, we are going to get this error. Previously we got the error that it was not initialized, but now when we gave some value to it and we are trying to access the second item where we have only one item, so we are going to get the outside the bounds of an array, because we don't have value or we don't have the index of 1 for this, because we have only one value and it is of 0 index. Are you clear about these two errors? Okay. So let us do one thing. Let us go to the 0. Okay. What error we are going to get now? Object reference not set to the instance of an object. What is this 23204, Satish?
Sorry, it's a typo mistake. Sorry.
Okay, fine. So object reference not set to the instance of an object. It's not allowing. For array, you can predefine, right? It is not allowing. So how you are going to initialize this list, right? So this will happen, this object reference will happen for any complex data types. And what we need to do is we need to initialize, and initialization will be similar for all the data types. Even for the data table also, we will get such an errors in case if it is not initialized. So the left side, we will be giving the value, and in the right side, to initialize any type of variables, right? We'll just use the keyword of new, and we need to use the data type. System dot collections dot generic dot list of int 32. So now we initialized the list object. Run the flow and see whether we are getting what error we are going to get now. See, index was out of the range. Okay, because we just initialized it and we came out of that initialization error, and now we don't have any value to it. So for that, how we are going to do is collections. Append item to the collection. And here we can give list. And here we can give the value. Save. And we can come here. In the output, we are appending to the same. Okay. So now we use this append. What happened? So now we are adding one value to the list. So we are using the append item to the collection. And now let us run this workflow. And now we are not having any errors, and we got this. Okay. So this is how we can initialize the list, and we can add the items to the list as well. And let us come from the dictionary variable now. Now we will get an error because it's not in the dictionary, right? So for this, we will be using new. Is it necessary that all the time you need to write all the system dot collections dot generic? It's not required. You can directly write dictionary. And here, what type we selected? String and integer, right? String int 32. I'm getting this. Let me see. Of string and int 32. So we initialized it here. If we are not going to write this, then we are going to get the object reference error. And how we can access it, these values, like based on the key value, whatever we are going to have. And let us write an assign activity here. How we can add the values to this dictionary of, and the value is 29. So in this way, we can add the values to the dictionary. And how we can access it? Because we need to access it with the keys, right? Dictionary variable, and it is not going to allow because it is the key value is of string. We can write. So now it is going to give us the value of that particular dictionary. And here we got 29. And can we modify it? Yes, we can modify the value again. I'll just use a reassign 30. And we have seen, right? Like it is 29 here. And let us run this. Is 30. And let us suppose you have a dictionary object with some keys, and let us suppose I added a space here and run the flow. you are going to get that the key was not present in the dictionary. So you should always refer to the keys which are already available in the dictionary keys, and then only we could able to access the values, and it should be perfectly matching, and it is not case sensitive. That is what I'm thinking. I never tried with the in case insensitivity. Let us see. We'll get to know that as well. Yeah, it is case sensitive, so it should be exactly matching. Are we clear about these three data types, or do we have any questions on this? So we are like having 5 more minutes. So now we are open for the questions. So whatever the questions you have, you can put it in the chat, or you can unmute and ask the question. Okay, I am considering that we don't have any questions. Yeah, regarding the email configure, still I'm not able to access the skill RPA email. So Satish, that email, right? Not to access it, just to receive on your email, like whatever is whatever I'm going to send on this email address, right? That will be received on your Gmail, where like you verified it, right? You'll be receiving it on your inbox, and to send it back, some configuration needs to be done. So as of now, I think like that I need to take one-on-one. So we'll figure out probably weekend, Saturday or somewhere, and we'll connect one-on-one, and I'll help you to configure that to sending an email as well. And we don't have any special email box storage, Shri. So Satish, so that will be linked to your email address only, like your Gmail, and whatever you are going to receive on the skill RPA email, right? You'll be receiving it on your Gmail. Okay. Can we install UiPath on Mac? It's a big question, buddy. And I heard from someone that like there is a way to do that. But end of the story, like you may need to have your VM. It's not like directly compatible with Mac. I suggest not to take any risk. And if you are not having Windows, then we can think of the alternate way. But I won't suggest to have the UiPath to be installed on Mac.
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'm trying to install in my Mac. So I mean, I don't find any such way where I can install. So that's why
Let me
I'm
see.
looking.
Let me see if I find some document. Right, I'll give it to you. But I never done it, and it's not so easy as well. Like installing on Mac. So you don't have the like Windows machine.
I don't have a Windows machine.
Okay.
In the
Let
M1,
me
the Mac
figure out.
machine M1, that is a new machine, so it does not have the option to install a Windows as well in the virtual machine. So it's a pure
Oh,
Mac. Yeah. So
oh,
that's the issue.
okay. Let me figure out like if I can find something, right? I can let you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay, guys, if we don't have any questions, so we can wind up the session here. And whatever the Gmails you provided to me, right? So you can access the videos only if you logged in with that particular user account to YouTube. Okay. Thanks everyone, and we'll circle back tomorrow sharp 10 a.m. and we'll continue with our data type conversion topic. Thanks everyone.
Thank you all.